Welcome back to G Brands. I'm Andy Rowan. As usual, I'm joined by All Blacks legend Justin Marshall, and this week we tried to get Dan Carter on, unavailable. We tried Colin Slade, couldn't make it. Aaron Cruden, just a blank no. So we got the one-time fourth best ever All Blacks first five, Stephen Donald. Thanks very much for joining us.
I'm still sulky. I'll go.
Actually, we also tried Perry Weber, who they're going to try at 10, but he couldn't make it.
He had to play halfback.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm honoured. Yeah, bloody oath. Honoured to be here.
Starting off with that World Cup 2011, we'll build up to the kick, but just quickly, like, there's two movies out there on World Cups. There's one with Francois Pina and Nelson Mandela, starring as a star show. Matt Damon does a great job. Morgan Freeman, I think it is, in there as well.
Yes. Yeah.
And the other one, Stephen Donald. I mean, how does that happen?
Yeah, I can't believe we didn't get Matt Damon involved too, but
To play.
yeah, I'm not sure who would have played.
Who do you think would play you if it wasn't you?
Yeah, obviously, the obvious one's Brad Pitt lookalike, but
Yeah.
no, a lot of the boys are quite salty on who their characters were. I know there's a few pushbacks about how they didn't look like them, but I mean, some needed a reality check too.
Who, name names.
Yeah, example.
I think there's some of the coaching.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. But no, I have no idea how that
I was
happened.
just sniggering to myself thinking, who did they get to play Shag? Like, honestly, who was the Steve Hansen?
He might have been vocal.
Jack Black?
Yeah. So, no, it's a very bizarre time, to be fair, mate, that all unfolded. And, I guess it was just the fact that I didn't think it would ever happen. So I just said yes to... I was sitting in Bath when they rang up and said, this is potentially going to happen. I said, what are the chances of it happening? And they go, not high. So I just sort of said, whatever, go ahead to it. And then get rung back up in Bath about 2 months later going, full noise. When you're back in New Zealand next, we'll interview you for you and get all the stories for it.
So what happens? Do you sit down and you help write the script, or does someone else just...
No, I had nothing to do with the script as such, but just sat down for I think probably about 10 hours and just went through absolutely everything. And then they go away and they craft it. And then to be fair, they came back, first script, we said, look, this has got too much GST on it. And then came back with the next one, which, just sort of...
Why didn't you just let the GST roll on it? Make it big, boys. Make it big. Give me Hollywood.
There was enough GST on it, so we had to trim up the GST a little bit. But, it is what it was. But,
Had you watched my Invictus before that?
No, I tried to watch Invictus once on a flight somewhere.
Every New Zealander's tried, mate, and successfully failed.
Because I remember the camping out in the lounge, the watching of the final, and not being able to get back to sleep as a 10 or 11-year-old, being heartbroken because as a 10 or 11-year-old, you got no comprehension that the All Blacks weren't going to win, and with Jonah doing what he was doing, you just think it was inevitable. So I just remember that being a real tough time in all our young Kiwis' lives. So I couldn't watch the celebration of the opposition.
But how many times have you watched the kick?
Once.
Bullshit.
Once. Yeah.
Only once?
It's tough to stomach when it's about you. To be fair, I mean, I can't bag it too much because obviously a lot of people worked hard on it, and the fact that you get mums come up to you and go, whenever my kid misses out on a team, we chuck it in and makes the kid feel better, and know that it's not all going to be plain sailing, but just the once for me.
Oh, I was just thinking about your kids actually. If you've got it at home, mate, the kids have seen it 400 times.
Yeah, they've watched it plenty of times.
Like Nemo or the kick. Oh, hey kids, sit down. Here's some real entertainment for you.
Not again, Dad. Not again.
Look, my kids are already showing early signs of needing a bit of resilience about them. Some of the tantrums that I'm dealing with at the moment. So I'm going to keep trying to reinforce that you've got to bounce back from things.
Thank you very much if you're joining us right now on YouTube, the premiere, which is 7 p.m. New Zealand time. And feel free to jump into the live chat. I know James O'Connell will probably be joining us when we start talking about the 2010 Bledisloe, but that'll come up shortly.
That's been wiped from history.
Wesley College is where it started. Famous school in New Zealand. For those that don't know, that are watching this that aren't from New Zealand, Jonah went there as well. Didn't he? Huge school.
Yep, no, it's about 20 minutes down from where we live in Waiuku, and never in my wildest dreams thought I'd ever end up there, but sort of the way it was going at the time, you had to be, it had to be at these big schools to get, academies and then get into the big unions. So as a sixth former, at the end of my sixth form year, I couldn't even make county secondary schools at sixth form, and I had a chip on my shoulder about that. So I thought, well, you can either sulk about it or go and join them. So went and had my final year at Wesley. Was potentially going to go to a couple of the Auckland schools, but in the end, I was a homeboy sort of thing. So I just literally could drive 20 minutes to Wesley every day, and that kick-started it proper. I mean, Marshall won't even know this, but I played as a 17-year-old against his Camaraderie team the year they had about 1 million All Blacks.
Really?
I remember that game.
Yeah,
Were you still at school?
Yep. But I played the day after we won the top 32 final at Albany, and so I'm walking off the field and get rung up, get the phone handed to me, and said, "Oh, you got to be at Pukeko Stadium at 1 o'clock tomorrow and playing these guys." My boys still, my mates all were there on the hill. They heckle me because they saw me. Todd Blackadder was still running around, and I was trying to tackle him, and I was getting just towed along by his jersey. So it was actually a very scary prospect because Lockie Crichton went down after about 20 minutes, and I got subbed out there and played about 20 until Lockie obviously realised that there's a scared little schoolboy out there, so he just took a jab and finally saved me from being out there for 60 minutes. So
that Canterbury team would have had all the stars.
They were all out there.
We needed to put a good side out because Counties had a good side.
So that was probably my second, third game that year that I played from Wesley, that they'd brought me in. But it was like, you look back now, they used to ring me up on like either the night before or I'd go in on the Thursday. And so I knew no moves, nothing.
And you were going in as a 10?
Yep. I was backing up Blair Feeney or Lockie, depending on the injuries at the time. So, yeah, it was a very bizarre thing when you think about how things are done now. I don't think you can even... I think age-wise they put a restriction on it now, but yeah.
How quickly was it that you got the call up to go to the Chiefs?
No, we stayed a couple of years in counties. Me and Sidovini were both in the same position where we were playing for them while we were still at school, and then they got relegated that year. We played 2 years each in counties, and then we went down to Waikato. Must have been our third year out of school. So then the Chiefs followed on from that.
And that was Ian Foster?
Yep, Fozzie.
So how did that process work? Did he just give you a call and go, we want you to come play for the Chiefs this year? Or?
You go in back then you win the draft. So I just started to make New Zealand Colts. So I was in the draft probably for a year or two beforehand, and it was either going to be Waikato or the Highlanders. And both, you know what it was like back then, Marshy, they'd say, sign with us and your chances skyrocket.
Yep.
And I was sort of dumb enough and... almost cocky enough to go, oh, well, no, you pick me and then I'll sign with you for NPC. And so a couple of years I flew down to Otago and did the whole looking around and all the rest of it. And with Waikato as well. And I think 2 years I got the call on draft day. Not this year. And then the third year out of school, that's when Fozzie rang and said, Chiefs is going to happen this year for you.
How was Fozzie as a coach? Because obviously he was the All Blacks coach,
yeah.
Documented. But how was he back then? What sort of impact did he have on the team?
Oh, well, obviously huge on me as far as he was a 10 and all the rest of it. But I guess the thing that you've got to remember back then, and probably different to the All Black days for someone like Fozzie, is there's 2 coaches or maximum 3 coaches. So they sort of did everything. And obviously the squads were smaller. But like Fozzie was having to be across... You know, and the Chiefs as a franchise were probably a bit amateur hour. So he was having to be across off-field stuff, and like would probably both say it wasn't like, right, he's a 10, I'm a 10. I'm just going to absolutely be able to just mould this little guy who's got some rough edges. Like he coached me as much as he could, but he was also having to be across absolutely everything. So that was probably the only thing that we probably both would have loved to have done more of, the hands-on stuff, but. There's a lot of us down there who probably have a lot to thank him for as far as the loyalty he showed to us and, you know, bringing us through. It was could almost be like your Hamilton dad because, you know, some of us had, you know, I guess the ability to sort of slightly go off the right track at times, and a stern word or a bit of a glance from Fozzie sort of brought us back every now and again. But I mean, it was massive for me, and he was literally during those years of, I guess, trying to be an All Black, he was, you know, the man that was always there for me, and I guess the man to lean on for me.
So you wouldn't have had a house there or anything. So you kind of go into a flat with other players.
Yes, yep.
Yeah, so that's danger as well.
It is danger. So my first flat down there was me, Sidavini, because we'd both shifted down together, Sione Loaki, Liam, but Liam was still just playing 7, so he was hardly ever there.
Yeah.
And Stephen Stefano, who played a bit for Waikato and then ended up playing a few more years for the Highlanders and stuff. So, yeah, it was an interesting flatting dynamic. And then after that, me and City went out on our own. And then I had to cut ties with City because the Hamilton winters were too much for him. So he would have about 15 heaters going on.
Oh, mate, you couldn't sleep.
And
It's too hot.
And once the bill wasn't getting picked up by Waikato, I wasn't paying that power bill. So I had to move on and just find my own place. But yeah, all part of, I guess, going down to Hamilton, and which seemed like a massive city for us boys. Well, for me and City, obviously. He was from Pukekohe and Wesley, and I was from Waikato and Wesley. So it was a fair shock to the system living in the big smoke.
What was it like walking into that environment for the first time? Like, obviously for me, it's difficult because I was foundation in '96.
Yep.
But I think about how younger players had to walk into our environment 5 or 6 years later, where we've been there.
Yeah.
And there's quite a few old school
Yes.
amateur players still around.
Yep.
That have a certain way that they regard the new green
boys.
raw talent that haven't earned anything.
Yep.
You know.
Well, it's funny, and like we were obviously catching the back end of that sort of old school mentality where I won't talk to you until you're on the field or maybe at 4 o'clock in the morning. You know, it was sort of that sort of environment. But as a young fellow, I loved it. Like you had to earn your stripes. I mean, you'd get talked to at court sessions because you were the one delivering cans to the old boys. So it was a good sort of. I thought it was a good sort of way of earning your stripes. I know, obviously, in latter years when I came back, in that the 19 and 20-year-olds will give as much cheek as the 28-year-olds, you know. So there's none of that sort of thing anymore. But I think it was brilliant, you know. Like, obviously, you didn't want it to go too far, but there was a generation there that it just like they wouldn't have. There was no hellos in the morning.
No.
Oh, how you going?
Yeah. No good mornings.
No, there's no good mornings.
Good night's sleep.
And the first few days, you were making sure, shit, where am I sitting here? Am I sitting in the right spot? The bus, you got
The bus is awful.
Used to run onto the bus as quick as you can to get a seat at the front of the bus, so you didn't get too far back to get told, "Oi, get out of here," sort of thing. So no, I mean it was a different time, but I loved it.
Do you know what I think was good for that? And I'm not sure where it lands nowadays. I do believe there still is the odd rare court session. And for people out there who don't know what a court session is, it's just a gathering of all the players after a game, isn't it?
Yep.
In a hotel room or in an environment where it's just the team and the support staff, and you have a few beers and a few fines and a bit of fun.
Yep.
But that side of it actually is where you really kind of see people's personality,
Yes.
don't you?
Yeah.
And you know, the quiet guy all of a sudden gets a couple of tubes in him, and then they start singing, or they've got something that they can do, like juggle or something like that, and it kind of is a real release of all that pressure that you're always under throughout the week, and then for a game.
And like I mean, I'd hate to think what some franchises or teams or clubs spend on pre-season camps and all the rest of it. And I still, to this day, and it's probably why we'll never be coaches, Marshy, but I still say spend a couple $100 on a few kegs and you get the same achieved. You know, like there's something about the bonding around that, as you say, and you get on a level with people that you don't always get to. Yeah. But no, as I say, I love those times, and obviously it's a lot different now, and I think probably social media and phones have probably put an end to that, as well as the evolution of professionalism. But it's times like that I'm glad that I got to experience sort of the back end of those characters, where I take the mickey out of them now that we're all fully retired and grown adults. I was like, you didn't talk to me for 5 years.
I think the just reminded me, because I was having to chuckle to myself about court sessions, and I remember this particular court session. We were in a Barbarians team, and it was in Brisbane, of all places. It was Classics, actually, Classic All Blacks. And like everybody's humbleized. Like I'd played 80-odd test matches by that stage, but no one gets treated differently. Yep. And I got picked out. So we're all if you can imagine, we're all in a big circle, and the judges are there, and they go, righto, Tony Brown's going to show us, his real true qualities of what he used to do back down at down in Dunedin, on the farm, whatever. And they picked out like 5 of us, and I was one of them. And we had to go outside the circle, and we'd be on our hands and our knees like sheep. And we had to keep go bah, bah, and make on our hands and knees go around. And then they go, when we say now, the chairs are going to open and you got to go into the middle. And Tony Brown's in the middle, like stalking the circle. So that we come all in there, we start like crawling around, bah, 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 and then he picks one of us, and fuck me, he picks me. You know, there's 4 others there, but of course he picks me. And so then you just got to play ball. So he grabs me up under the armpit and he flips me over, and he's got a pretend shearing thing, you know. And so I've got to go through the process. He's lifting my leg up and he's get the dags off. And then he just flicks me under his legs like that, and everyone's laughing and cheering. But it's quite cool because it, like I said, it just grounds everybody.
Yeah.
Like, you know, the end of the day, a Richie McCaw or a Dan Carter or a Sean Fitzpatrick could be chosen as one of those. You got no say. The judges rule, you know? And so everyone's equal.
It was funny you mentioned Fitzy because we played that classic All Blacks game a couple of years ago in Madrid or Milan.
Was he still manager or
well,
whatever?
he came over as manager, and we're having a bit of a quick sort of drink cordy in the change room before we went to the aftermatch, and someone was nominated to dish some out. And I can't remember who it was, and they said, "Fitzy, you'll do my 2 for me." And I was, and we're
Everyone's heads would have went like that.
About 20 years younger than him, and like obviously iconic All Black. I was thinking, fair play, put them away. But again, one of those environments where that sort of thing
that's it.
can
Yeah.
happen.
We've got a little bit sidetracked with court sessions. I just want to take it back to the Chiefs, back on the field for a little bit. I mean, they're great yarns. I don't want to dwell on the performance, but obviously I want to talk about the Super Rugby final. We had to go to South Africa.
Again, white from history, isn't it?
Yeah. You might not remember. I can give you some stats.
Who played that one?
But I guess my thing around that game, where they put 60 points on you, is the caliber of players that the Bulls had, and then also how massive it is to actually play there, like the occasion.
No, and 60 odd points aside, proud of the fact, or not proud, but like happy to have said, right, well, I've played a Super Rugby final at Loftus. Back then it would have been as big a task as you could have had in World Rugby. You mentioned their team sheet. If you said that team sheet was a Springbok team, you'd say, well, it's a fairly heavy Springbok team. I still say that I was lucky enough because DC's Achilles had popped that year. I got to play the Springboks that year and start all those ones. I still say that's the toughest test I've ever had as far as a rugby team.
The Super Rugby final was?
Sorry, the Springboks were of 09.
Yeah.
And their 09 Springboks team was based on their Bulls.
It was pretty much the same team, mate.
It's the same team when you look at that pack and who they had in the back line. But as an experience, it's tough to fathom. Like, we flew over there. We just sit around and wait until Sunday New Zealand time because the Crusaders were over here, and if the Crusaders had popped them off, I think it was the Crusaders had them in the semi, the final would have been in Hamilton. So we had to sit there, wait, then they booked our flights. I think we left Hamilton on about Monday or Tuesday, and we only had about 3 or 4 All Blacks at the time. We'd already lost City, Brendan Leonard that week. So we went over there, getting guys out of the wider training group at the time, because those were the days of the 26-man squad. But as an experience, like, you knew you were walking into it because Loftus was still special just to play in round robin games, because there'd always be 30,000 there for us. You guys would have had full houses when you guys were rocking along. There's always 30,000 there waiting for us, and they're always going to abuse you and shake the bus and have their briars from about 5k out as you used to go through those streets and finally get there.
How good.
And we got there on about the Tuesday. We didn't train at all because obviously the flight and you've got to recover. We had this one sort of semi-captain's run, semi-training at the police grounds. And
everyone trains there.
Everyone trains there, and we were assured, look, it's going to be under wraps. There's going to be no one there, blah, blah, blah. We pull on up there, and there would have been close to 5,000 kids scattered amongst 20 fields, and there was big columns in the middle, and Cuban, who was always the security, he was trying his best to go and spot anything. But sure enough, there's nothing you can do. So Fozzie was like, well, what are we going to do? We're going to do this? And we're like, we're going to have to, aren't we? So it's going to be our one training. So we trained. And look, I'm not saying that had anything to do with it, but a few special plays that we'd never pulled out, there were guys waiting for them.
Right, in the game.
Yeah, like Sione was getting triple teamed on a couple of special of our plays that hadn't been shown all year. But that is an experience, you talk about, like, there would just be nowhere tougher as far as proper hostile crowd. Like, coming to Christchurch was hostile for us. But at the end of the day, we knew we could play, shake hands, jump on the bus.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of fear factor when you go to some of these places. Like, if that crazy guy out there could, who just knows? But, it was proper intense. And as I say, the lineup they had. But the funny thing about that game, and it's still, obviously it's humiliating to be, unfortunately, the Chiefs last year missed out by a point on taking that record off their hands as far as biggest loss in the final. But as much as humiliating as it was, the fact is we started real well. If you think, if we're going to get blown off the park, we're just going to get blown off the park. But we scored first and things were starting to go all right. And then that was the year that those ELVs were, there was no scrums. So it was just quick taps. If there was a knock-on, if there was any sort of usual scrum, it was a quick tap, the ELVs. Oh. And so they actually quite suited who we had. Like, we didn't have the big All Black forward pack, but we had, real quick backs and, Leonard and likes at halfback and Silvani and all that. So we had the ability to take advantage of them. But I remember the turning point, and I know it's tough to say it was turning points, but after 15 minutes, Alec de Melmont was just running amok. He was making 30-metre runs off kickoffs and all the rest of it. Well, he knocks himself out at one of these 30-metre runs on Pretoria's hard deck.
On the ground?
On the ground. Fru Dupree, of course, straight away, free kick. Fru Dupree picks it up, runs the other way, he scores, and then it was just a bit of an avalanche from there. And then I remember we got back to within 25, sort of 12. Millsy scored under the post in the second half, and this was all about 20 to go. And then somehow Cucks goes and pops his shoulder, and then we were just hanging on by a thread, and then just all of a sudden, bang.
Floodgates, and
then 30 points just get smashed over us in the last 20 minutes, and all of a sudden, we're walking off the field thinking, how have we lost the final by 60?
How rooted were you with 20 to go, though, if it was that type of free-flowing game with no scrums and there's quick taps everywhere?
Well, and because they had...
And you're at altitude.
At altitude. But I always found altitude was worse for me in the warm-up, because we often found that we actually came right.
Is that how it works? Like, so you almost like sweat it out.
You don't become unfit.
No.
But it's just obviously because you're at altitude, like getting the oxygen in, you just get real dry in the mouth, and that's why you see. And when you see guys going for water bottles, people think they're tired.
Right.
The fitness levels aren't great. It's not your lungs. Yeah, you breathe heavy, but it's more the fact you got a real dry mouth.
Like gagging on your mouth.
Yeah.
Did you get a little bit excited as a goal kicker in those situations? I go, I wonder how far I'm going to be able to knock one
I
over.
love kicking at altitude because you didn't have to worry about anything, and you should think like that all the time. But I knew when I got to altitude, be it Pretoria, Joburg, or Blom, that you were just really pretty much rhythm, like get your foot onto the target, watch the ball, they're going over, and it just simplified things so much for you. And of course, naturally the distance came, but no, I love kicking altitudes, not for distance, but the fact that somehow I sort of hypnotised myself to think I could simplify. And then, the frustrating thing is, why don't you just do that back on sea level? Yeah. But I always found it really easy kicking out there because you just had to really narrow your focus. But that final, not many days go by where it doesn't cross my mind just ever so briefly. It would have been nice to have done that differently.
But you're right, you were testing yourself against the best.
Yeah,
and that team was stacked full of Springboks. And I concur with what you're saying. Like Ellis Park and Loftus are probably two of the hardest. They're not the greatest stadiums in terms of facilities.
No.
They're quite ancient.
Yes,
but they're big. They're full of South Africans.
Yep.
And they let you know it.
Yeah.
But that's why you play the game.
Yeah.
They do rock the bus, and they let you know that you are in their patch in their home, and that you are foreign to them, and they're very productive in the way that they want to let you know that. But then that they after the game, the first thing they're doing is offering you a cold beer, Castle. Yes. I'll give that a miss. Have you got it? An Asahi? But anyway, and join them for a braai and that. Great. You get the feeling it's hostile because it is when you're playing and before you're playing. But regardless of the result after. They just bloody love New Zealanders and love New Zealand rugby. And it's probably not. That's great about the South African people.
And even their players. It's not until probably you go away from being week in week out with them with Super Rugby or Test match until you go play at maybe an overseas club, and you quickly become best mates with them because you realise we're a whole lot more similar.
We're similar, man,
than you think.
Yeah,
because you just think these guys are these animals that want to tear you apart because you see the crowd and you see the physiques and you think Loftus and all of that, but once you get to know them well, like, I mean, from Bath, my best mates in Bath were South Africans. So,
funnily enough, mine at Saracens were as well.
yeah.
Yeah, like we had quite a few South Africans because we had Johan Rupert who took control of the club. And, I just found them to be cut out of the same cloth, like gravitated towards them and their similar interests. Yeah.
How was your time at Bath? We're jumping ahead. We'll come back. But how was your time at Bath? Because by all accounts, it was a bit of a shit show, wasn't it?
It was a shit show. It was a shit show.
Why did you go? Why did you go there? When was that? That was post World Cup.
Yeah,
post World Cup.
So I never wanted to go anywhere. Always just never comprehended going overseas. Whenever we'd gone on interview tours, England did nothing for me as far as it was always miserable and cold. And I was like, never coming up here. But then I got tipped off probably May or June. It must have been April or May during Super Rugby. Doesn't matter what you do, you're not getting picked for the All Blacks.
That black and white?
Yeah, well, yes. It came via, but they said that was where it was going to be.
Who told you?
My agent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they had, your agent's obviously going to ask because he's looking for opportunities outside of New Zealand.
Yeah.
And he said, well, we've talked to the coaches or the coach or the selectors.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he'd say it as softly as you could to me, but he wanted me to know, and to be fairness to the coaches, they were actually doing me, I won't say solid because not picking me wasn't solid, but but the fact is they knew the rules of going overseas, and for example, England, you had to be a current international to get a visa. So they're like, well, you might want to get Beaver sorted now, prior to the teams being named, because he's not going to be in there. And so for me, as much as I wanted to stay and play, and I was nearing 100 games for the Chiefs, not being able to be an All Black or even having that dream of being an All Black there was just, I just couldn't comprehend it. So I was like, shit, I'm not going to be able to play in New Zealand if that wasn't even a chance. So I just thought, I'm going to go. And then, so I think Bath were in the market and DC was outside the price bracket. So then next option was me. And so Ian McGeechan came down to South Africa when we were touring with the Chiefs, met me in the hotel, and he was about the only coach I knew of Northern Hemisphere, so he had a big name. Yeah. So I was like, yep. And so him and Bath and Barretts sort of came, equal money, equal terms, and there was a little bit of talk around France at the time of owners just doing all sorts of radical stuff to foreigners.
What year was that?
2011.
Yeah, that happened to me about 2 years before, doing random shit.
And we had just had Tana come and play that year with the Chiefs, and he had told us a few stories about
Toulon.
Or not Toulon, but a few, it must have been Daniel Herbert's sort of stories.
Yeah.
What sort of stuff would the owners get you to do? Like, what sort of things?
Play by yourself, if you're on the outer to try and force you to walk sort of thing.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. They did. You had to do like what?
They wouldn't let me into the stadium. Mate, I wasn't even allowed to go to watch the game when I was banned. I had to watch it on TV outside of the stadium.
And that's the club's rule.
That's the owners and the coaches saying no.
That's what scared me off France. And look, if I had my time again, I'd have probably rolled the dice at Barretts because I didn't know Barretts. Barretts tried to fly me up. This is not great, but Barretts tried to fly me up in our bye week of Super Rugby. And I said to mates, I'm not flying all the way around the world for bloody 3 days to go to just shake hands and check out this club. I mean, I've got a Sunday session planned at my house and I'm not flying all that distance. And anyway, I went to Barretts during my time.
Hamilton, Barretts.
and I actually went, we played in the Heineken and had 3 days off afterwards during my first year at Bath, and I went with a mate and we surfed in Barretts and stayed 4 days in Barretts, and it was in the middle of December. And we were without wetsuits and it was 20 degrees in the water, and I'm thinking, could have signed here. Yes, Billy was the halfback. They had a great team too, and probably regretted that one. But the Bath thing was just, Bath, and you'd know, Andy being up there at the time, they had spent a lot of money, and I think they were trying to be a football club. They bought these ridiculous training grounds and just thought, there's the key to success. And once Geach left, there was coaches coming and going, and it was just a real funny environment at the time.
Yeah. And
look, if the World Cup probably hadn't have happened, I'd have probably been a different person. But I went up there, sort of half, still looking back at New Zealand, thinking, well, the reason I wanted to leave is not a reason anymore. And I guess I would have happily stayed, but obviously a contract's a contract. So I jumped on the plane, and I went up there, so heart probably wasn't in there, and I guess when I've worked out that this was a funny old environment, like for me, because I'm not highly skilled or anything like that, I had to tick every box during the week with your discipline, with your extras, with being across game plans and all that. And I think I got to a point there where it was a funny environment, and I probably didn't tick everything during the week, and all of a sudden, the weight balloons. Once I couldn't have an input into how we were going to play, and I just had to play like I was a Northern Hemisphere 10, which I didn't have those attributes. I had other attributes. I just sort of, I guess, interest was starting to wane.
Switched off a bit.
Picked up a few injuries, and once the opportunity came that I knew that I had an out after 2 seasons, I couldn't get to Japan quick enough.
We have jumped forward a lot, but we're going to go back to, because the two very key parts of the Stephen Donald story are 2010, 2011. I mean, that's why you've got a movie. So 2010, you were playing in Hong Kong. You're always under pretty harsh media scrutiny anyway. The game doesn't go your way. Talk us through kind of that last sort of part of the game, and then the fallout from it.
Yeah, I mean, geez, I was my harshest critic as far as that 20 minutes. It was muddled, and like I went on that tour after being injured all through the home internationals. Had 4 or 5 good NPC games, which I didn't think was going to be enough time to force their hand, but it did, and they took me away on it. And I was starting to think, I mean, once you're an All Black, then you want to be in a World Cup. And I was a long way out for, this home World Cup's going to be something special. I want to be a part of it.
Of course.
And so that tour, I was like, well, shit, you've made it back. Nail this tour, they won't go elsewhere now. You'll be in that home World Cup. And so that was my mindset on that tour. And when you think about it, it's quite a negative mindset to be in. And so got that 20 minutes against the Aussie, or 25 minutes, whatever, and had been in real good form. Confidence was high. But I just went out there with a real scrambled mind, and I know I get, pulled over. Well, did get pulled over for the fact that I missed touch or what have you. The biggest thing that irked me was, I think with about 12 minutes to go, I had a kick about 15 in from touch, right-hand side. I know the blade of grass it was on. And I missed it. And that would have put it out to 8. So that could have just sort of swept under all the bloody, poor kicks or poor decisions that I made during the game. And that's what irked me. And then I knew I'd play poorly. Like I didn't, and back then, without, I guess, everyone's addiction to the internet or social media, it was easy to sort of block yourself off. You're disappointing yourself, and it was a tough tour to get through because I knew I'd let everyone down and myself down, and we were actually on a world record winning streak, and I think we needed to go through that tour unbeaten to get the world record, and obviously that was probably circled as a bit of a game that was going to sort of get through that, and probably the rest is probably going to be sorted. And so I was aware of all of this, and so so I beat myself up for about 4 weeks on that, and those were days it was probably about 5-week tour, 6-week tour, and I was beating myself up, and it's the only time that you don't want to be an All Black. Like I was literally just counting down the days to finish it, because I knew I'd let myself down. But it wasn't until I guess I got home, had summer, that I realised the big fallout. Like I couldn't go anywhere without. Well, when I say go anywhere in summertime, you want a bit of freedom. You want to be able to go to the pub or what have you. But I could be at a pub, or I could be waiting for a taxi, and there were, the remarks getting thrown over.
No way.
And then obviously, and then once Super Rugby started, unless I was playing in Hamilton, every warm up I went out to, I was getting it, because back then most of our stadiums were laid out where you warmed up with the cheap seats. So we would be warming up in front of terraces down here, or in front of the embankment there at the Brock and stuff like that, and it was just pretty relentless. So that and obviously being told I wasn't going to be an All Black led to me to go, maybe I do have to get out of New Zealand for a few years.
Like your mental health must have been crushed.
Yeah, it was probably before a time where it was actually talked about. But yeah, like I look back now, and it was like I was. I turned to this if there was an opportunity, more so than normal. Like I usually love to go over beer at the pub, wouldn't unless I was, enough deep that I wouldn't register what was going on. So, and even things like, I remember one that was affecting everything as far as mentally. I was like, just try and have a couple of good games, because no one else was really lining up the competition as far as the tens go. And so, like, obviously DC was going to be there, and then it was just like, right, you got to scrap, you just got to get there somehow, some way, and you'd always get perked up when I was playing cruds or what have you at the Canes, and just try and put your best foot forward. But my mind was just that scrambled, mediocre probably at best, no worse or better than probably cruds or Slady that campaign. But I think obviously I knew that I was done. But I remember it was one day I'd had a real bad captain's run, goal kicking wise, before a game in Hamilton. And I woke up one Saturday morning, and I did something I never did because I was that scrambled. I went down to the local park, set my alarm early, go down to the local park before anyone was there, just to try and get a few more kicks and just got a few more confidence. Just, just things like that. You're just so scrambled. So yeah, it was just a horrible time really. As far as that mentally was pretty stuffed, and at the same time trying to convince yourself, oh well, for a couple of good games here, you can make the World Cup, Sam.
Yeah, I don't think you're alone in that though, mate. Like I think all players suffer from having a bad game or a bad period.
Yeah.
And I obviously all the time got criticised for my passing game, you know. Like if I had a shit game, I could have had an amazing passing game. And but I'd missed a tackle, knocked the ball on, done whatever, but straight away in the papers, can't pass. Shit pass. It's like, hang on, passing was fine, but the tackling and the, blah, blah, blah. And people then would read it and then they'd go at me.
Yeah.
Did you cop it in the pubs and stuff as well? Did people yell things across the street?
I did the same thing. Like I outside of training, I ended up going down to the local park, not at that time in the morning, but and I took a bag full of balls and I'd just pass at a football post, and I'd just do it for 40 minutes and just go both hands, bang, 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 because it was wrong because I was trying to prove a point to people that there was nothing wrong with my pass, but there was actually other parts of my game where I could have a little fluctuation, but because that's the centre of attention, and because every punter, you're at the supermarket, whatever, that's the first thing they would say to you. Shit, passing game's a bit average, isn't it, mate? You know what I mean? So that's just the way. But the thing that really interested me out of you talking about that, Beaver, was that game was the first time I'd ever commentated for Sky in Hong Kong. So I was on debut, mate. And so I didn't get away to a great start because neither did the All Blacks. So, but I remember obviously that last 20 minutes, and I then saw you. I think you probably won't remember this. I think it was in Wales. You play Wales?
Yep.
You guys played Wales,
yes,
and I bumped.
There.
Yeah, and I bumped into you, and we had a brief chat.
Yep.
And I just thought the way that you, like to me, you sounded incredibly mature. And you said to me, you might have had a couple of beers on board, but I didn't notice. Yeah. So you just said
you'd had a few beers on board as well.
No, I'd had a couple. It wasn't too bad though. But you just said, hey, look, Marshy, a bit disappointed about Hong Kong. There's a few things there that I probably did wrong. Maybe preparation was a big part of it, and then I know a couple of things in the game, blah blah. But I kind of feel what it's like now to be an All Black and blah blah blah. And I thought to myself, here's a guy that actually has kind of moved on. Yeah. That what you said was actually really good, and I thought, good on you, mate. Like you've owned it. Yeah. And now you're here, So it's interesting that it was more long suffering that, because I thought here's a guy that's got his head screwed on, he's recognised it, and he's owned it, and he's now moved on. Yeah. And now I remember thinking about it. I remember it real vividly.
Actually, I do remember us doing that now. Actually.
Yeah.
Might have been a few beers on board, to be fair.
2000.
Funnily enough.
Surprise. 2011 World Cup kicks off. Yep. You're not on the scene, but look, what does the World Cup look like for you? What are you doing?
Oh, brutally honest, trying to avoid it at any cost. But I had to stand. I was gutted.
How'd you find out?
Ted rang me.
Oh yeah.
So I was outside doing something I'd never done in my life, washing my car. My dad's always into me about that, but was washing my car, phone rang, Ted, you're not going to be there. Have a good time.
That easy?
Yeah. Well, I think they had decided that the formula for telling someone is keep it as short as sharp because they're not listening. Yeah. And I wasn't. You just go into a haze for the next wee while. I remember I had a promo, just going down and talk to the local university, the primary school attached to the university. I had to be there 2 hours later, and I just drifted in there. Did what I needed to do, but I was there, but I wasn't. It was like an out-of-body experience because I'm still just sort of feeling numb from the phone call, even though I knew it was coming. And then, the World Cup for me was trying to avoid it at all costs. You couldn't. Like, I'd actually asked New Zealand Rugby to go to Bath early. And they said, nah, you got to wait until the day after the final, and that's when your contract can be terminated. And I was like, well, you're not going to pick me.
Yeah, that's niggly.
You're not going to pick me. So then, I just, there was a couple of incidents, like you couldn't avoid it. New Zealand's a small country, you got 30 teams. I remember going down, I caught up with Isaac Boss, who was an Ireland team, and went and caught up with him for a feed in Taupo, and at one stage, then the entire Springbok team walks in, having pizza at the same place, you just literally couldn't avoid it anywhere. Didn't want to watch it. First game, ironically, that I watched was the quarterfinal. When
You didn't watch any of the All Black games up until then. Yeah.
But you see, did you watch the quarterfinal because Carter was injured in the last 4 games? So it was the next game up.
I went up to mum and dad's and I was sitting in Waikato, and I was going white band the next day because it was running, so I thought I'd take the hour and a half out of the drive and get down there nice and early. And like Dad, obviously, as much as I was like, come on, I'm not there, but he was always going to watch the quarterfinal, so I'm sitting in the lounge watching it, and then it's unfold. But still, even when that injury happened, like I was like, nah, they'll go elsewhere.
So that was Slade.
Yep.
Slade goes down in the quarterfinal.
And I was still convinced that they'd go elsewhere. I was thinking, oh well, Pity's there, they might just get another halfback in or what have you. So I had no inkling. Cucks was ringing me every day saying, oh, they'll pick you.
Cucks.
Kahui. Because he had rung me and said, get ready when DC went down.
Oh, because he was on the wing, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's a winger.
Beautiful. Oh, please be listening. Richard Kahui, you winger.
So I had no comprehension of it. So that's when I got up at 5 o'clock in the morning and we went down and set up, and we were just down the river, and obviously, true story, that there was no reception, and it wasn't until we got off the river that the phone started to blow up.
And who's on the other end of the line? Like, who's the first?
Well, it was quite awkward because I'd had these missed calls and from a number. I deleted Ted's number because if you're not going to pick me, Ted, I'm going to delete your number. So he was gone.
You are scorned.
I tell you what, you look at both of our phones, Ted's number's not in there.
And so then I think he must have stalled Mills and said, Mills, get a hold of Beaver. So then Mills got a hold of me when I'm driving back from the boat ramp and said, ring Ted. And so obviously I knew what I was ringing him for, but it's an awkward way to go about getting you back in the All Blacks. You had to ring him.
Beg me, Ted. Beg me.
Yeah, so Ted, it's Beaver here. Yeah, what are you doing? So literally said, well, we got tomorrow off, just come on up 2 days later and we'll get into it. And he said, but I remember him saying on the phone, you'd be in the 22, I think, at the time. So.
What did your diet look like at this time?
Oh, not pretty. And again, this is probably a reflection of my head going to Bath is, like I'm a real New Zealand sort of, I love a lot of downtime in New Zealand. I love just living in New Zealand, and I thought my throat was being cut because I was having 3 years away from New Zealand. So I was going to do everything possible that I enjoyed. So it's barbecues, beers and fishing. And I had 7 weeks of it. Yeah. And like also, I can't drive past a bakery without getting a pie or two. So my diet was terrible. I just started to go for the odd jog. And I'm talking jog, it wasn't interval training, it was jog, about a week before they rung. But I'd had 6 weeks since the NPC finished where I literally just let go.
Bad Nick.
Just said, right, I'm going to enjoy my next 6 weeks. I'm not going to be obsessed about going to the gym or running or kicking or anything like that.
So you get brought into the All Blacks.
Yeah, in the worst shape of my professional career.
To play in a World Cup final. What's the plan? Are they?
Well, I went to Nick Gill, who's obviously the All Black trainer, and he'd known me from Waikato and Chiefs. I said, mate, and I could be honest with Gilly probably had a fair idea. I said, Gilly, mate, I'm not in good shape. Let's do some extras. And he goes, no, you got a good motor. Your motor doesn't disappear, so you'll be right. Just do some sharpening work. But yeah, there was a few thoughts thinking, geez, why all of a sudden is this training top looking ridiculously tight on me and what have you? And it wasn't until obviously the rugby jersey got put on me that I really started, the alarm bell started ringing.
But mate, it needed to be skin tight. When you're down half of it, a couple of clicks on pace. You want to make sure no one's scragging your jersey.
There's no gripping.
There's no chance you're gripping hold of me like that. I'd rather have it slightly out of shape than someone scrag me by the jersey.
So then you get on to the field.
Yeah.
There's another injury. Colin Slade goes down.
No,
Colin Slade. Aaron Cruden goes down rather. Talk us through. Press play on this and just talk us through this situation. What's Beaver doing? What's he saying? What's he saying?
Look at that crowd for a start off.
He's striding forward very confidently. Yeah. That's getting oxygen.
Yeah.
Watch ball follow through. Do that. They go over.
When you hit it,
Knew it was over. But,
did you?
But, of course, these were different balls apparently, and they weren't great balls.
Johnny Wilkinson wasn't happy.
Yeah,
with them,
and all my kicks, I always start just inside right because when they come off, they don't curve, but they just naturally go about a metre to the left every time.
Yeah.
So just inside right, I look up, perfect, I'm out. So I take off.
It's starting to.
And it starts to go the other way, apparently. And it wasn't until later on that night when a few beers sitting around the team room, who Mick Byrne, great part of my career, he was the T-boy. And he goes, it ain't just snuck in. I go, what do you mean? And he goes, it started to go that way. So obviously I believe that they were poor balls because none of my kicks go that way.
I love a kicker who blames a rugby ball. Remember the lemon?
Was it lemon or pig? Was it lemon?
He called it a pig, but it was a lemon. That Adidas ball. They got rid of that pretty quick because he hated that thing. Yeah.
Also, like you were wearing the number 21 jersey.
Yep.
Could they not have given you a Fords jersey?
Look, I didn't. To be honest with you, apart from Cux tells the story that he had to get it on me in the changing room, and that might have been the case. But it honestly was not until we started to do the lap of honour where people are already onto me from the crowd.
You had to lift the thing up.
Oh, no, just walking around, people are giving it the crop top and all this sort of stuff, and I didn't think anything of it. I literally didn't think anything of it until obviously saw the footage and then go, oh yeah, I guess it is a bit tight. But to be fair to them, they would have gone off last year's sizings. When I was, at the end of year two, I was in half decent nick, I'd have thought. But then clearly I wasn't. So I know Poster, who the gear manager at the time, got a lot of grief about giving me Aaron Cruden's jersey. But no, I think it was supposed to be mine.
The positive would have been like the celebrations afterwards. You would have been probably the only one in the team that was piss fit.
Well, it's funny you mentioned piss fit because I remember the first time I come in, they had club rooms, which is, I guess, a newish tradition. I think it might have been after Marshy's time, but sort of every Thursday or something, they'd get some peanuts and a few beers and trying to make a classic Kiwi club environment. And they always got someone to sort of start things with a vessel. And Ali being Ali goes, well, there's only one man for this. You come up. And I'm like, mate, that's the last thing I need. I'm here drinking water and trying to find some lettuce. It's the last thing. But yeah, I was in good condition as far as being able to back up.
And since then, you've obviously come out of life after rugby's involved you going into the media and also the drinks game.
Yeah, so I guess the media one's a funny one because obviously hated the media when I was playing, and obviously probably had vendettas and little fantasies about meeting a few in dark alleys. But look, it's funny now to be in it.
I can arrange that for you if you want. It's never too late, mate. I'm probably on that list as well. So be careful here.
The ones I'm thinking about, they're probably all retired now as far as writing for their respective papers or whatever. But so obviously the radio was something I fell into daily, so that was good. And then just doing some podcasting and that now with Kirst.
Tell us about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So me and Kirst did the radio together for 4 years, and we're both having to finishing up due to, I guess, not being able to work together in the same studio logistically. So really enjoyed working with Kirst. Like you guys, thought, when you do something positive for the game and talk about the game in a positive manner. So we got the aftermatch, which I think we're 8 episodes deep, and just trying our best to. Kirst loves getting stories out of me. I said, I can't just keep going over well on these incriminating stories because I keep just making myself look like a what. But it's been good, and we've been blessed with having a great year of Super Rugby to talk about too. So it's been fun being positive. And
did I hear somewhere you said the Blues are going to come second in the competition?
Look,
because you've rebuilt yourself.
Yes,
you've won the World Cup. You've redeemed yourself, and you're saying shit like that.
Yeah, look, we've got to get a lot of grief on radio and in the podcast that I'm anti the Blues because of obviously being Marcy's born where he is. I'm born in Waikato and counties, and we have issues with Aucklanders, and it's ingrained in us. When I said they were going to come second, I probably hadn't done my maths as much as I needed to because since making that statement, I've worked out that if the Crusaders and the Chiefs win 2 more games this year, then that takes out the ability for Blues to get second. But they've got a soft run home, is what I was trying to highlight, and they might get on a run.
Come back.
Yeah.
Good comeback.
You brought these in. What's
Yes.
going on? What are
Yeah,
these?
so tell us through how that started, because you're in with some pretty
Yeah.
high profile rugby celebrities.
Yeah, and they do run a celebrity life these days, those lads. Me and Damien were in another little business together, and we had a little bit of leftover money. And we were either going to blow it away on a horse, which we all know you can do, or there was a time there where these RTDs were becoming a bit fashionable, and I'd never had an RTD in my life, apart from maybe as a 14-year-old scumbag having purple guanas that used to rot my teeth. So we thought we'd roll the dice with this. Grins, because Damien, so I'm in with Damien and Anton Leonard-Brown, and Grins because obviously Damien has the smile before a goal kicks. We're sort of 3 or 4 years deep into it, and unfortunately because those two tell me they're busy, I end up being, the
head guy.
I'm the CEO, I'm the marketer, I'm the driver of the delivery van, and everything in between. So it has been a lot of work, but she's been an eye opener.
Is it just in New Zealand?
We're in the stage of trying to look into the overseas stuff, but at the moment, just in New Zealand.
Yeah.
So you've got the orange and lemonade there, Marshy, and what I will say about it is you'll get healthier drinking it because it's low sugar and low carb.
However, it's not just orange and lemonade.
Oh, vodka. Yeah, sorry.
That small little sort of
Just a dash of 5% vodka.
Marshy's almost had a heart attack.
There's no alcohol in here. What the hell are you trying to make?
What's that marketing called when you just turn up and like put your
Ambush.
marketing?
Yeah.
That's what you've done. Very
Well,
cheeky.
yeah, it was
I
good.
enjoy
Like
it.
we asked Beaver to come on, and he insisted that he brings grins and promotes the hell out of it.
I told you about just soft drinks to quench the thirst, but yeah.
Thank you very much for coming on the
Thanks,
show.
Beaver.
No worries, guys.
Cheers, mate.
Appreciate it, lads. And thank you very much for watching or listening. Make sure you hit the subscribe or follow button on whatever platform you are listening or watching this on. We'll be back again next week.